We have 5 of us. We have our, I think our quorum, but let me read through a statement that I think we are required to read at the outset of the meetings because of the way we're doing this. So I have to read this statement. I have confirmed with Town Council that tonight's meeting has been convened in accordance with the Governor's March 13, 2020 Executive Order 202.1, which suspends certain provisions of the Open Meetings Law to allow a municipal board to convene a meeting via video conferencing. In accordance with the executive order, the public has been provided with the ability to view and hear tonight's meeting, and a transcript will be provided at a later date. I have done a roll call of the board members, at least visual anyway, and there is a quorum present for the meeting. I have also confirmed that this meeting has been duly noticed. A link has been provided to the public where they can view and participate in the meeting. Furthermore, a video of this meeting will be made available on public access TV and the town's website. As always, the agenda and all materials considered for tonight's meeting are available for viewing on the town's website. So we'll call the meeting to order here at about 7:06 on Tuesday, April 7th. So welcome all in whatever capacity you are appearing. I'm the dark spot at the top, and here we are. So our first matter,
Bob,
we are not going to hear. Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is Jennifer. If I could just interject, we're getting a lot of feedback, or at least I am. Anybody who's not speaking, I recommend that you put your device on mute, and that'll eliminate any of the background noise and feedback that we're experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you. As I mentioned before, we will not hear the Baskowski application. We'll reschedule that for May 7th. So our first matter this evening is the informal appearance before the board. This is the application of ST Chappaqua A&B LLC for a master subdivision plan. This is the final subdivision application for a master subdivision of 480 Bedford Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Andrew Tung here from Divney Tung Schwalbe. Here on behalf of Chappaqua Crossing and my colleagues who are in little boxes on the screen, Felix Carney, Dave Walsh, James Fitzpatrick, Greg Otis, Mark Weingarten, and Matt Steinberg from my office. As you mentioned, we're here in support or to present the final subdivision plat for the master subdivision of Chappaqua Crossing. Following our meeting with you last month, at which you granted conditional preliminary subdivision approval, we have updated or revised the plat and created a final plat to address a number of comments from the town engineer. We have submitted a final plat application form, and we have addressed certain comments from the town planner's memo from last month, which included a request for a supplemental graphic showing parking, lighting, and walkways across the entire site. If it's okay with you, I'll go to, I'll share my screen and look at some of those figures. Unless you have any questions before I do that.
Sounds good.
So we had a series of figures just to review that were prepared to help explain the plat, because of the size of the parcel and the various easements and other components to the plat is not that intuitive to read. This, as you know, is the master subdivision of the Chappaqua Crossing site, formerly owned by Reader's Digest. It currently consists of 5 parcels, which are shown here. The one full Reader's Digest parcel, which is 113.7 acres, which I'm outlining now and goes off the screen to the right, and 4 single-family lots along Bolingbrook Road that were formerly owned by the Digest and also contained, most recently, 3 houses which have since been removed. So that's the existing condition, 5 parcels, approximately 117.8 acres, 113.7 for the main parcel and 4.1 for the total of the 4 single-family lots. Figure B, which was updated in this most recent submission, shows the proposed condition. That would be 6 parcels in those same area, consisting of parcel A, which is around the 200 building, which is now multifamily residential. Parcel B, 59 acres in the west side of the parcel. It contains the office building and adjunct parking areas. Parcel C, which is the retail parcel in the southern portion of the site, 20.5 acres. Parcel D, the future East Village, or MFPD, currently under review by the Planning Board for site plan, 32 acres. Parcel E, the auditorium parcel, 1.1 acres. And Parcel F, an open space parcel of 3.8 acres, which contains the balance of the 4 single-family lots that will no longer be developable for building purposes. This reflects then the 5 parcels turning into 6 parcels. We call it a master subdivision because there will be subsequently a further subdivision of parcel D to reflect the 91 townhomes and 1 common open space parcel that are currently being reviewed by the Planning Board. As part of our submission, as I mentioned, we created another figure that would help to show how the common site elements and linkages serve to make this site feel like one parcel, one campus, as it did under the digest, while still having the subdivision lines, which will not be understandable or perceivable in the field. These primary elements, which are shown on this plan, are the parking areas, the lights, and the walks and the trails. The parking areas are shown. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. Parking areas are shown within each parcel so that the retail parking is here, the office parking is here, and the future residential parking is here. They are all connected from a common scheme of roadways, which were, for the most part, initially created by the digest and augmented during the site plan process with the town of Newcastle to add, for instance, a new driveway to the south. The lights, the site lighting extends across the parcels. For instance, the red dots indicate the pedestrian lights, which were selected as part of the retail plan and extend along all main roadways. You can see them lining the streets. They will extend into the East Village, the same fixture, and also extend around other areas of the campus. The blue dots indicate the new parking lights, 20-foot LED fixtures that were used in both the retail and the central office parking areas. In some of the northern office parking areas, the pre-existing lights remain in those locations, and in several feature areas, such as the right in front of the 200 building, and in other pedestrian plazas, there's a 4-foot bollard light. This common lighting scheme will help to connect the different areas of the site. And then finally, in the blue and the orange, either solid or dashed lines are the trails and the walkways that connect all the uses to one another. So this graphic, as I mentioned, was created to help answer some of the questions from Sabrina's memo, comment number 6. In addition to this, we've provided some revisions to the Plat to address Bob Cioli's comments from his February 13th memo, and we've provided the final subdivision plat application. With that, we would request, because we believe the plat to be substantially the same as that of the preliminary plat, which was approved last month, that the planning board consider at the appropriate time waiving the public hearing that can be waived under the final plat provisions and granting final approval for the master subdivision. Again, just the 6 parcels with the East Village further subdivision to come later. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Andy. I had 1 or 2 questions on your cover note. I just need to get some clarification on my own understanding. When you talk about the walkways in your memorandum, you talked about, for example, in the snow plowing, shared costs, even though each property owner will be responsible. Will we see shared costs or some sort of mutual enforcement? How will this work in terms of walkways? If one property owner is not maintaining an area to the degree or scope that we would like to see, what will be the enforcement measure from either the other owners who might be impacted as well as from the town? How are we working on that in your documents?
There is an operating agreement, a master operating agreement for Chapel Crossing that was created by the applicant to address just these sorts of issues. Who does what and when, and what happens if somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do. Dave Walsh could address those, but I think there is a mechanism under which the group pays for the maintenance of the shared roadways and entryways and sidewalks. Each entity pays for what happens on their own parcel. And Dave, perhaps you could address what happens if somebody doesn't hold up their end of the bargain.
Yeah, I don't recall the specific provision in the master operating group agreement that would penalize one of the different property owners. I know it's there. We can certainly get that for you. But the largest portion of the common area, which what we call the loop road, so it would be the entrance coming in off Route 117, and also the entrance from across from the school on Roaringbrook Road, and then down by the railroad tracks and going all the way around the property is going to be controlled by the office component. And then the office component people will, bill back, the individual entities for their share, pro rata share of the maintenance of those common drives and those common walkways. The individual property owners for retail, Toll Brothers, and then the rest of what is the office, they're responsible for their own internal lots, for lack of a better term, and internal walkways around the buildings, around the retail buildings, and obviously Toll would be handling everything within their demise space, for any of that removal.
Okay, I think that makes good sense. I don't think we need to get into the details. I guess my one concern is making certain that there are some sort of devices for the protection of the shared parking space in parcel, well, the office parcel. I guess it's parcel B, for the benefit of parcel E, the Performing Arts Center.
Yeah, so that, Bob, this is Dave Walsh again, sorry, but that particular parking lot is controlled and is specifically maintained by the office component. So that will be an office component responsibility to maintain. The road in front of the auditorium and the walkways that will go along, along the loop road is a common area expense that the office component is responsible for maintaining, but bills back the pro rata share. So I don't think there should be any worries there.
Good.
This is Tom Curley. To your point, I don't know whether, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Bob, to your point, I think I just heard that the walkways, et cetera, in particular the walkways, would be, which was my concern, would be, the responsibility for the walkways within a parcel, for example, within the parcel, which is, I think, to be wholly owned one day by Toll Brothers, that it would be their sole responsibility to maintain those walkways?
That is correct.
So I guess I misunderstood. Last time we had this conversation, which I think was our last meeting, I was under the impression that all the walkways were going to be under common area maintenance agreement.
No,
and it sounds as though I guess that's not the case. It never was the case, and I guess I misunderstood.
perhaps, Tom, I'm not sure. I don't recall that specific question coming up last time, but if we just take, let's just take Toll Brothers, for example, that entire site, just like all of the sites that they have in owned around the area, they're responsible for the maintenance of those. There's a different level of maintenance, I believe, and maybe if James is on, he could also opine on this, is that there's a different level of maintenance required for a residential property in terms of snow removal than there is for a commercial property. I think.
Okay, snow removal. I'm sorry. Snow removal is not my concern right now. I just want to. We can get back to that in a second.
I'm sorry, I thought
just stay on this if I may. So the conclusion I think is that it's really only the sidewalks that are in the category of walkways. The sidewalks which adjoin the common roadways, essentially the common rights of way, which are going to be under the agreement of a common area maintenance plan.
That's correct.
Okay, so I was really most concerned about, the sidewalks, snow removal and all that is really important, but I was really concerned about the maintenance and access of the walking paths. And the main walking path network is actually within the future Toll Brothers parcel. And as a consequence, there is no common area, there is no, there apparently is no authority in place to be sure that they actually maintain it for the common good of the town, because I thought that was to be a publicly accessible walkway.
I believe that is part of the common area maintenance, but I'm not 100% sure on that, Tom. We can get that answer and get it to you.
I thought you just said it wasn't because it was within the.
I was talking about, I'm sorry, Tom, I'm confused now. You're talking about the paths. I thought you were talking about the sidewalks and driveways within the toll community. So those sidewalks that they're installing are their responsibility. If you're talking about the walking paths that go on the east side down along Cowden Lane,
exactly.
I don't have the specific answer on that.
I think we need an answer on that.
Yep.
One of the
I'm sure it's addressed. I just don't recall it, and I don't want to misspeak.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. I brought it up because I forget who brought it up originally, but it just occurred to me that my feeling was that there ought to be a public easement for these things. And we're told that that's not in the cards. Well, then we would hope that at least there was some authority that would be sure that they would be maintained for the public good. And it doesn't sound like that's in place unless you can tell us otherwise.
I will get an answer on that from our attorneys in terms of how the REA is structured. I believe that is the case, that they are being maintained by the REA, and the easements for those paths. I'd have to talk to Janet Garrison, our attorney.
And just to finish up, that would apply to not just those paths, but all the pathways. I think in the I'm less concerned about the sidewalks, because I think those will absolutely be maintained for the benefit of the tenants, because they're going to just require it. But some of these other areas, I think need to be, we need to have some assurance. So thank you for looking into it.
Okay, you're welcome.
As we look at the subdivision for Parcel F, I'm wondering if the applicant has any sort of feedback to provide to us, and maybe directly to the town board, in terms of what they would like to see for Parcel F. Now, this is the section along Roaring Brook Road that is designed to be, planned to be open space. But it seems to us that there are some opportunities or different kinds of open space And I don't know if we've heard yet from the town board, but it might be interesting to hear from the applicant in terms of the kind of open space they would like to see. If it's passive, if it's a small pocket park, if it's maybe a couple of benches, or maybe nothing, just wild. We have a trail that goes along, or pathway, I guess, that goes along Roaring Brook Road. But I'd love to hear from the applicant in terms of their input, especially if there's something that they don't want to see. I presume that you don't want to see, you know, a stable or a ballpark or something like this, but are there things that they think would detract from their overall goals and their development, their operations, or not?
Just a point of information, this is Andy. You may recall that there was a fairly extensive landscape planting done in the former sites of where the houses were demolished and where the lawns were. So that was done as a reforestation, if you would, consistent with the wooded planting that was around the backside of those houses. So we did not, in that planning, plan for any active use of that area. It was to, at least as envisioned for the planting, was to serve as a continuation of the woods that form the backyards of those homes. So we did not envision any active use of those areas.
Hi, I recollect pretty much what Andy said, and I agree that by planting all the bushes and the trees, that the intent was, at least that's what I remember the intent was, to keep it as a green space. I think the green space thought was to separate more visually the residential area where it says Parcel F, you know, 3.8 AC across the street, and the sight lines into the parking lots and the Lifetime and all the other stuff. So that's what I recollect. I also recollect that on a small point, I had suggested that someone look into this corner right here. I think there's a safety problem with cars coming in this way, because that path is right near there and there's no simple barrier for children or people that are working, you know, waiting for something. So I'd like to put that back on the table again, that a simple, you know, aluminum kind of heavy duty aluminum barrier that maybe runs 10 feet so that a car that loses control here doesn't run up and accidentally hit somebody. Part of it doesn't have to be big, because part of it has a terrain drop that prevents the car from hitting people on the path. And then back to the parking up above, I would suggest that when we say this is office parking, I would like to see something that you know, says and local or nearby housing, or put it on top of the outline of the building that parking is, you know, is labeled office parking for this building, something like that, or words that say that. I think it was said once in everything, but I think it needs to be said stronger. End of speech.
Dick, I think those are good points, and I really support your suggestion about that barrier at that corner. I have noted that many times ever since you've raised that issue, and I think that's a very important one that needs to be addressed. And my recollection of Parcel F is exactly the same as yours and Andy's. It was just a question out there in case there's any kind of change. This is a very fluid situation. But I do recall that was really set up, and we were reforesting it really for the vegetative buffer and the visual buffer from the parking lot, from the fitness center, and of course the rest of the retail section. So if that's fine with everyone, that's perfectly fine. I've seen some correspondence where people were soliciting or talking about what might happen there. I think I caught in with some correspondence between town board members and other members. So it was just for clarification. I'm perfectly fine with your point, Dick, and I think it is a good point.
Can I go back to, I just want to clarify something if I can. I think I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, that there were the common area, maintenance areas, which were essentially the roadways and sidewalks, which are used by everybody. And then there are the spaces which are within a tenancy's parcel that the tenants will be responsible for. For instance, let's just take Parcel C. There's Lifetime Fitness. They've got there's a big parking lot there. Are they responsible for the snow clearing of all that and the maintenance of all that? Or is that handled? How's that handled, for example?
Tom, this is Dave Walsh. So each individual parcel owner, take Parcel C, which is the retail portion. Parcel C has a snow removal and landscape maintenance contract with one vendor to handle the entire retail component.
Got it.
It's not the individual tenants.
Okay, so the tenants, their only responsibility is essentially within their building line, right? It's just their building.
That is correct. So it's basically the outline of their building on the interior and the.
And the roads will be taken care of by a common person, I guess, that would handle all of the roads in and around here, I would say, and down to the office, but not the roads here in the MFPD, right?
Correct. What we call the loop road is essentially the common road that is maintained by the office component and billed back to each individual parcel owner, whether it be Parcel D and C or E. So they all get a pro rata share of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have one more question, and Les or Sabrina or somebody, please help me with this, because the sequence of these approvals and reviewing plans and the steps that we've been through, I've lost track of what's happened to I thought we had an agreement that the loop road was going to be the area of the loop road, which is, I guess it's to the west of Parcel D, that we were going to, it was going to be regraded according to, I thought Bob Kirkwood had an excellent suggestion there. Is that anywhere embedded in any of the resolutions that we're working on, or where does that stand right now?
I can address that. This is Andy. That's part of the East Village site plan work that the planning board is to pick up, we believe, next. It's the construction associated with the East Village. So that is still very much on the table and still our proposal. We made a submission showing that about 2 months ago, and we'll be coming back to the planning board for that review.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just say something for I know Tom and Dick, you guys like to talk about places on the plan or on the screen. You have the ability to highlight an annotation table on your screen. If you go up to the top of your screen or somewhere on your screen, if you touch it, you can turn on a toolbar that you can create arrows and lines in different colors to draw on the screen. There's a couple second delay between what you draw and what everyone else can see, but it may prove to be very helpful, particularly as you're speaking.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'll check that out. Thank you, Sabrina.
So now, when I run my cursor around, no one else can see that, right?
Correct. You have to turn on annotation.
Ah. Okay. Yeah, where's that? I see that upper.
If you are on a PC or a computer, it should be at the top of your screen under View Options. If you're on an iPad, it may be on the side or a different button when you touch your screen in different places.
Yeah, I see View Options, but I don't see anything.
Pull down that arrow.
Got it. Annotate. I found it.
Annotate. So click on the draw tool, click a color. You can draw on your screen that everyone else can see, but there is a little bit of a delay.
There's a drop down toolbar.
Okay.
Watch, I'm going to put a pink arrow in here. Do you see that?
I do. It's very pink.
Yes. Happy Easter.
I crossed you with a green arrow.
Also, Dick, if you
Yes,
go up
you
there
did.
too, you can use
I can
mouse.
scribble some green on there. Yeah.
You can
Mouse.
use mouse, and you can use the mouse. And I guess when you move your mouse on your screen, we'll see where you put the mouse.
Oh,
Right.
Can you see my mouse?
I just unmuted you.
I beg your pardon?
Can you see mine? That was what I'm
What?
testing mouse.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, we see the loops and stuff. Yeah. Okay.
It's all the way on the
Thank
left.
you.
Okay,
So,
that's great.
Sabrina?
Okay,
sorry,
not to take you off.
Sabrina, one question. How do I
Yes.
do my green arrow now? Where do I go?
There's a clear. You go up to clear
Go up to,
And
oh, yeah,
X.
on your toolbar.
got it. Thank you.
Ah,
But somebody else can clear all. You can clear all.
ah,
Very good. Thank you.
this
So
is,
how did you do that arrow? I saw that you can make lines. I did some squiggly lines.
Understand. You can select the arrow under stamps or on the arrow insignia. Click it.
Okay. So,
Yeah, there's different tools in the toolbar.
no,
okay.
I just got one there on retail overlay, so I'll clear that.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
and it goes
Good.
away. Cool.
Okay.
Hey,
Very
this
good.
is better than,
Anybody can erase it, or anyone can erase or clear.
This
this
is,
is this is better than town hall. We can change Andy's drawings now.
yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
He can choose to save it or not.
My dog doesn't like that idea.
No, I don't.
Sorry to take you off tack. So, Bob, do you want to answer the question about Bob Sealy? Do you want to answer the question about the loop road?
About the loop road. In what regard?
Yeah, the question was asked. Whether that's tied to this or not, and where we are in the process.
Oh, with the loop road, with the regrading of it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, like I said, like we said previously, that's going to be looked at during the review of the East Village.
Right.
Plans will be submitted by Andy Tung and his staff, where we'll be reviewing it at that time.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. That's great. I was just a little concerned because that's sort of off-site from the Parcel D. Technically, the Parcel D.
I think it. I think it's.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I
some of
think it is
our-
important.
Sorry.
It's okay. I think for everybody to understand, this is the drawing of subdivision lines. This is different. It's not a construction project. We still have a very active construction project or a site improvement project, which is the East Village. So a lot of the things you've been discussing most recently have related to the East Village site plan. So this is a little bit different, and then this is just the drawing of the subdivision lines, and I think it's important to make that distinction early on as you consider this resolution and this application.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Right. And also, I think in addition to the site plans that we'll be looking at for the East Village, it's my understanding that we will also see a master site plan for the entire property when we have that section completed as well. So we'll make sure that all this dovetails when it all comes back together. So are there any other questions at this point? I guess the question I'll pose to Andy is, Andy, is it your professional representation that this application is substantially similar to the preliminary subdivision application that we saw just last week or 2 weeks ago?
It is, Mr. Chairman.
And I think Sabrina and Bob and Les, I think you're in agreement that we haven't seen any kind of material changes from the last subdivision that we approved, the preliminary.
Correct.
Correct.
So that being said, what we have before us is a resolution. But I guess one of the things that we can do at this point is there any interest in opening a public hearing? We have the right at this point, if we do not see any substantial changes, to waive the public hearing for the final subdivision, master subdivision.
So Bob, if I might say something at this point,
Sure, please, Les.
Okay, good. I finally unmuted myself. People could hear me. So at this point, since you've had a representation of substantial similarity, you could entertain a motion to waive the public hearing. It's not required where the final plat is substantially the same as the preliminary plat that you had the public hearing on previously. Good.
Okay. Do we want to, is there a motion then to waive the public hearing for the final master subdivision?
So move.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think that was everyone, Felicia. Right? No, was there an abstention? Was that, did you recuse yourself on that?
No, I said aye.
Oh, okay, fine. Yep. So 5-0. Okay. That takes care of, I think, that information. I think the next thing now is to tackle the resolution that has been prepared in anticipation of the waiving of the public hearing and to move forward for approval of the master subdivision plan. So are there any issues on this? I know we've had a couple of minor changes that the applicant has submitted, but it's my understanding that none of these were substantive, none were material, mostly language, wordsmithing. Is that correct, Les?
Yes, the applicant has added some language, and I can go through it, or the applicant can go through it, some wording that has been added. There's also been some changes to the acreage, which remain unsettled at this point. So my suggestion is that the resolution be adopted with the understanding that town staff and the applicant will confirm the correct acreage before the resolution is. The differences in the acreage are very small. They relate to what is the gross acreage and what's the net acreage after the dedications to the town and to the state.
So again, don't consider this to be material one way or the other. I think it's a tiny fraction of an acre.
Right, it's small. Andy, do you want to go through the change that you're proposing? Because they don't have your changes.
Yes,
It's up on the screen now, I think.
Okay.
It is.
There it is. Yes, it is on the screen. So you can see on page 1 in the first whereas clause, the request to add the word predominantly. The town staff didn't have any objection to that. Similarly, the addition on the second whereas clause of the change in the date, we didn't have any objection to that. The third whereas with the numbers, we're still going to be working on to get them confirmed. The fourth whereas with the predominantly and the language that will total 117, again, the acreage we're confirming. Predominantly we had no objection to. And similarly, the totaling 0.4 plus minus acres will confirm that, but we had no objection to adding it there.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Dick.
Thank you. From a mathematical point of view, when we say, like right in 1, 2, 3, fourth one down, master subdivision that will total 117.409 plus or minus acres. I would suggest that if we're going to use plus or minus, that we make the number a bigger number and get rid of the 09, because in some places that would connote the difference is 1,000th of an acre plus or minus. Or you can put in 117.409 plus or minus 1/10 of an acre or 2/10 or something like that. That would make me feel much better mathematically.
That's a good point, Dick. Can I, if I may say something here? I was just going off the numbers off the Plat. So I'd like to use your latter idea where you use the 409, but just don't put in the plus or minus. So at least the numbers will match what's on the Plat.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So should we go on to page 2?
Okay.
Yes, I think so.
So let's go. If Andy, can you roll it down to page 2? And in the first whereas clause, there's about 4 lines from the bottom. There's some added language, and is to become a publicly owned auditorium, and encompass the area remaining in the 4 former single-family lots. More explanatory language, but nothing of substance. We didn't have any objection to it. Then also on page 2, an additional submission that was added. For the record, we included that. And then I think we skipped over to page...
I'm going to go back to page 1.
Okay.
I have an English problem this time.
Yeah.
All right. Whereas, number 3.
3, yes.
Okay, the first part I agree with. The site is currently composed of 5 parcels of land totaling whatever. The main parcel contains the existing office building, parking areas, and landscaped areas of the former Reader's Digest campus. Well, some of those landscaped areas have been converted into a commercial area, so the verb tense is somehow wrong, or something, because it leaves out the big commercial area we have, most of which was landscaped areas or parking, but landscaped areas. Because Lifetime knocked down, a whole bunch of trees came down, and quite a few also for the Whole Foods part of it.
So you want to make reference to the retail area, basically?
I think we have to. I mean, the existing office building is true up to the extent that it doesn't give any credence to the existence of the apartments in Building 200. So I think the statement is, it's okay, it's harmless, but it's not correct. It's not complete.
We'll add.
What if it was changed to contained instead of contained?
Yeah,
That works.
that would work.
Okay.
Close enough.
Okay.
Good. In line 34 on that page before we leave it, can we just change it from composed to comprised?
Okay. Got it. Anything else on page 1? We should go back to page 6.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can go up to 6. Paragraph 16, there's a little additional language about the 4 former single-family lots, which I think we had already mentioned, and the area remaining in the 4 single-family lots, again, non-substantive. And the final, and I think that was is there any other change? I don't think so. And then I'm going to make one change in condition number 25 on page 6.
On 16, the single-family lots aren't former. They still exist. They haven't been expunged. They're lots. There were former single-family dwellings there, but the lot's still single-family.
Well, they will be to be former single-family lots.
Yeah, it will not be after this.
That's fine.
Or soon to be former single-family lots.
Yeah. And finally, on paragraph 25 on page 7, on the 3rd line, we're going to add, after it says parking, lighting, sidewalks, we're going to add the word roadways as well before walking trails.
Good idea.
And that is the extent of the proposed changes.
Well, none of them seem significant.
Oh, and they're not.
Good. Any other questions regarding the resolution? And if not, is there a motion to adopt the resolution as amended?
Motion as amended.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against?
Aye.
Any recused? Who's against?
Misspoke, someone did.
No, it just said aye.
Oh, hi.
Oh, aye.
Did I get, Alicia, did we get the vote correctly?
Did Eldad, did you recuse yourself?
I'm going to recuse, yeah, going forward on this, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so I think it's Mr. Sanzari adopted the motion, Mr. Curley seconded, Eldad recused. Okay.
Right. Okay, and 4-0 on the vote. Okay. I think we are set at this point, and we move now next. We'll see you guys next for the site plan review.
Okay, I will take leave of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Les.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
Les, take care.
See you
See you guys
soon.
later.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to our next item, and this is the application or a resolution for consideration of 16 HRR LLC, Vecchio Lot Number 4. This is an application for a site plan, stormwater pollution prevention plan, amended subdivision, clearing and grading limit lines, steep slopes, and tree removal permit approvals, 16 Hollow Ridge Road. This is action under consideration resolution. So, Jennifer, I think we've had a couple of changes that we entertained from Jerry Tortorella during the course of the day. And I think those are articulated here in the revised resolution that we all have. And there were a couple of questions I think that the applicant had for consideration by the board in connection with the resolution.
Yes, so this is Jennifer. I just want to mention as a follow-up to Chairman Kirkwood's statement that a revised version of the resolution was circulated to the board members earlier this afternoon/evening. Those revisions included, with respect to condition number 3, to make specific reference to the construction sequencing for the common driveway utilities. There's a series of notes that are on sheet S8 with respect to that sequencing. That was a big topic of discussion at the public hearing, and we wanted to make sure that there was specific reference to that sequencing in the resolution. So that was included with an additional statement in that condition that the applicant shall avoid performing work on the common driveway during school bus pickup and drop off times to the maximum extent feasible. And then the other change was minor changes to condition 7 to change ands to ors. And you can see that in the red line version that was circulated. And it was circulated to the board members, staff and consultants, and also the applicant.
Right, and frankly, I'll take the hit on that because it was really my audible late in the day with Jennifer. In looking at the resolution, I recalled we had some interested commentary from neighbors regarding the details of the construction sequence and notification about school hours and when the trenches would be dug and how they would be dug. And I thought it was important to make certain that we articulated that in the resolution. But there's nothing changed here from what we discussed. It's just making certain that the information that we discussed was set forth in the resolution, easily accessible by members of the public if they're interested, and I think easier for staff to reference it in the event there are any issues or questions that come up. So again, it is a change, but at the same token, it's really just a recapitulation of what we discussed before, and I thought it was important to make sure it was in the resolution.
And I will mention, this is Jennifer, I will mention one more thing, that condition number 7 that refers to the easement discussion on the Barrett property from the last time the applicant was before the planning board. That condition in particular was discussed with the applicant last week. I had discussions with Jerry Tortorella last week because, as you recall from that meeting, that's not a condition that the planning board can unilaterally impose upon the applicant. It has to be something that the applicant agrees to. So I thought it important to make sure that that was discussed with the applicant before circulating the resolution.
Thank you. Sure. I mean, Jennifer.
Good. Are there any other questions or issues or changes that members have seen or would like to discuss in the resolution?
I have none.
I had a couple that I discussed earlier with Jennifer. They're relatively minor, but they were basically inserting disjunctive ors instead of ands on page 6, lines 15 and 16. I thought that made more sense, and that was the only other change that I had suggested.
And in the revised version that was circulated before the meeting, that's on page 6, lines 21 and 22.
Okay. Jerry, did you have any questions that you still wanted to present to the board for consideration?
I did, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. So I wanted to talk about condition 21. It is a condition, when this subdivision was originally approved, the water main installation had a cost associated with it, and the town was going to recoup the costs from each building as it was being developed, so as it was being constructed. So the developer did not pay that cost up front, but as building permits were drawn, there was going to be a reimbursement back to the town. And there's a declaration of covenants and restrictions that memorializes that. So that's what this condition relates to. And the calculation is based on the formula that's in the declaration. Given the fact that we are undertaking to possibly have to redesign our water main location, our water main service line, our water service line on the abutting property, we wanted to just reserve the ability to possibly go back to the town board and ask for some consideration against that fee, given the additional costs that we're going to incur to accommodate the neighbors' requests here. And that's what the language at the end of this condition 21 is intended to reserve for us. My question to the board is, are you willing, or would you entertain possibly making a favorable recommendation to the town board in connection with that request if and when we pursue it?
Before.
Can't hear you, Tom.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you, sorry. It seems to me that, well, we always try and accommodate the interest when we can, reasonably so, accommodate the interest of the neighbors and the neighborhood in general in the town. It seems to me that this particular adjustment in the location of the water line is specifically for one neighbor's benefit. Unless I'm mistaken, this neighbor actually made the request for this. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's my recollection. And if there is an additional cost, would it be unreasonable that that neighbor would bear the cost of that? Does that make sense to anybody, or is it out of bounds to suggest that?
Well, I'm not sure. This is Dick. I mean, I remember what the neighbor said. He suggested this as a possibility if everybody was interested in it. And in part of the discussion, I recollect that what it would do would be to save tearing up or damaging bushes and small trees that are along the driveway right now that dead ends at this new property. So I believe that that would have been something the applicant would have had to pay for to restore. So now if we do it this way with coming up the hill, all of that cost goes away. So I don't understand why the extra cost is greater than unburdening that other cost.
Well, I think it might be helpful, perhaps, if Bob Searley weighed in on this and gave us some background on it. It's my understanding that this is basically a fee that was set forth when the Ferravecchio subdivision was set up, and it was basically to prorate the cost to the town of running the water lines over the course of the construction. Now, this particular applicant, I guess, is at the sort of one of the last ones, if not the last one in the subdivision. And just to give you some perspective on this, I think originally when the people were first coming in and putting in the water lines, the cost that was allocated to each homeowner back then was about $14,000 each. Since that time, with some sort of factor inflation or otherwise, now it's up to $27,000 plus. So I certainly wouldn't suggest that we would ever entertain anything less than the 14. I guess the issue is to consider the delta and why we would do that. And by the way, it's not for us to decide. It's a town board decision. I guess it's just whether we would make a recommendation. So perhaps, Bob, you can fill us in and give us some facts as opposed to my speculation.
Basically, yes, hello, everyone. Basically, back in 2002, 2003, the town was put in a water main for Wildcat Road heading down Route 128. At the time, the previous town administrator realized that this water main was being done. We decided to put the water main in for the Ferravecchio subdivision prior to the subdivision going in. Now, keep in mind, if you put this all in perspective, any subdivision that comes in and is built by the applicant, the town never pays public funds for private development. So this monies was agreed upon back then to have the town recoup all the public monies that they put into the water main back from the applicant to make it as if it was any other subdivision to build it by the applicant after the fact. So these monies, in my opinion, I think would be tough to be waived, because then you'd be public funds for a private water main that is always to be put in by the applicant. And also too, all the service lines are always the responsibility of each individual homeowner. When the developer comes in, they are never ever responsible to put the service lines in for various reasons. It's not their responsibility, and all they really do is put in a service line under the roadway. So if the board asks my opinion of it, I wouldn't recommend it, because I basically, on the history of this, it was only to recoup the monies that the town shouldn't spend on private water mains as well for a private subdivision.
So Bob, do you know, in terms of assigning cost per lot in the private subdivision for the water main, was it prorated equally for each lot, or was it just based on acreage, or do you know how that was done?
I don't know the interdoings of the mathematics, but the resolution that was in the covenant, as Jennifer and Jerry referred to, they just put a flat number in there at that point in time many years ago. I think 2004 or 5. It was at 13.9. And what they did at the time is to take into account inflation, so they inflated 5% from every year from 2006. And I've been with the town 28 years, and every applicant that ever came into the building department paid that fee with no issue. Even after it was extended many years. I think we had someone come in, Sabrina, not too long ago on the east side, maybe 2 years. They had to pay about 20,000 plus, and there was no issue with that. And basically, if they would have went back to the town board, I don't really know what would have happened. But if they asked for my opinion in a recommendation memo, I would not recommend it.
So the fee to the town, the number is irrespective of any difficulties in actually installing the line. The property owner has to pay to install the line, however it gets done, and in addition pay the fee.
That is correct. Every subdivision I worked on, and probably about 12, again, the developer is never responsible to put in the water service line to each individual site. That is always the responsibility of the builder or owner who buys the property.
They usually put it 5 feet within the property line, don't they?
That is correct. It only goes up to the curb box, which is 5 feet within the property line. Right. That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other issues or questions on that? I guess it's Bob's recommendation, rather strong recommendation, that we not support it. Obviously, the applicants can still appeal to the town board directly. Is there any appetite to support that with a letter of support from us, or just let the applicant go and deal with the town board as they feel see fit?
I would recommend that we support Bob. I happen to agree with him, but even if I didn't agree with him, I'd still support him, because it seems to me that you know, there's a town engineer issue really, and I think that we maybe owe the town board a memo or something on this.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm in agreement with everybody. I think that it basically it's out of our purview. I don't have an appetite to press it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Greg?
I concur too. I'm with everybody else. And I think the cost incurred for this is probably going to be offset by not having to rip up the driveway or replace all the landscaping. So maybe a wash at the end of the day.
Okay. Eldad, any thoughts?
It makes sense to me. I also think it's a slippery slope to suggest that a neighbor pay just because they're trying to make some, you know, they have a recommendation on a change to the site plan. There's a real danger there, and somehow if there's a public benefit to a change, all of a sudden you say, well, the neighbor suggested it, and they may have to pay for it. It doesn't seem to make sense here, and it would be a dangerous precedent, perhaps. And I would be supportive of the recommendation to put forward a memo to the town board, not just take no action, but to take an action and let the town board know where Bob and the board stand.
Actually, if I can support that statement, the memo that we send ultimately maybe should include that thought, that the slippery slope thought, because I really agree with that, and that might be further justification that the town board needs in order to support this action.
Support it how?
Okay.
Support that they not entertain having a reduction in the town fee.
Jerry,
Yep.
a question.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the way it's going, now, well, maybe this is for Bob. Bob, who would pay for this, since it's not on the applicant's property, it's on somebody else's, the neighbor's property? So the bill goes to the developer, the builder?
Well, I think there's a little bit of confusion here. That fee was set up to cover the cost for the installation of the water main in the street that would be dedicated to the town. It has no bearing on the water service line. It has to be installed at this point in time, because that has always and will be the responsibility of the applicant and the property owner regardless.
Okay, so even though it's going to come up a different way, the applicant would pay for it, and then the applicant has to work out something with the landowner besides, right?
That is correct.
Okay, good. Thank you. That makes it clear. I haven't changed my mind.
I don't know, based on the comments that I've received this evening, I don't know that our client will decide to pursue it or not. I will share, they're not on the call. I will share it with them. And I would say that, we will let you know if we decide to pursue it. And in that vein, then it may be appropriate to send the memo you're referring to. If you send that memo without us making that request, it may come out of left field and be confusing to the town board.
That's reasonable to me.
Yeah. All right. There was one other provision I wanted to just ask you about and to see if we could get some consideration on, and it's the second to last be it further resolved paragraph. I don't know what page to refer you to, because I have it printed out on 8.5 by 11 and not on 8.5 by 14, but it's the one that talks about the duration of the approval. And it's basically saying that as long as we get a building permit within 6 months, then the approvals are valid. If we fail to do that, then the approvals will expire. And the date in it is October 8, 2020. And my request to you is to ask if we can initially make that a longer period, given what's going on right now and the fact that we don't really know when we'll be in a position to actually pursue and have a thorough review of building permit plans. So I was going to suggest a 9-month period, request a 9-month period, where we would have to get a building permit by January 8, 2021, or the approval would expire. And I raised this with Jennifer. I know it's contrary to your normal practice, but I raised it with her, and we agreed that it would be appropriate for me to ask the board this evening.
And Jennifer, can you confirm that this is something that we can do? It's within our purview?
Yes,
if,
it
if
is.
we so decide.
Yes, it is within your
Okay.
discretion to extend that period.
So 9 months,
Okay.
so it could be 9 months, and then we go into extensions as we normally do with half the projects.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
In addition to the things that are going on out in the world, in addition, don't forget the applicant has already indicated that they're going to make a good faith effort to investigate this other alternative,
Right.
and that could go another 4 months. So it seems to be, it would be a penalty. I mean, a penalty to us, frankly, because we'll just have extensions. So it seems like a very reasonable request to me.
I agree, and not only is it a problem, but to do each extension costs the applicant some money. Not maybe serious money, but it's certainly more than lunch money. So I totally agree.
Is 9 months the right number?
Pardon me?
Is 9 months the right number?
Well, we can get it. They can have extensions after that.
Well, I
mean,
think what Greg
because
is
if we already know there's going to be an extension in 9 months, that's why I'm asking.
Why not make it a year?
right. Does that make sense, Jerry?
Well, look, as long a period as you're willing to give us works for us. We have no incentive to want to delay it unless something happens financially that, we're not in a position to pursue it. And right now, I don't think anybody can make the guess about what position we're going to be in 30 days from now, let alone 9 months from now. If you're comfortable with a longer period, that's fine. I didn't want to be unreasonable in my initial request.
Well, you would.
And Jennifer, do you have any problems with that?
I don't. And just for the purposes of the record, I know we're all familiar right now with the situation that we're in, but for the purposes of the record, and so 10 years from now, if somebody's reviewing these minutes or transcript, the current state of affairs is that all non-essential construction cannot proceed. So even if this applicant was prepared to pull a building permit in the next, say, 30 days even, the applicant wouldn't be permitted to proceed with that work. So, that's the situation that we're in due to the current pandemic.
I think your point's excellent, and I think that should be in the record, that this somewhat unusual request, while it is within our purview, it is something that we're willing to do for a year because there are so many uncertainties about the ability to get anything that is not deemed really essential done for months or something like that. If we can put that into it, then I think that would be great. That would be my personal opinion.
I think that makes good sense, Dick.
So you can even add that in the resolution.
Yeah.
We'll make that distinguish. We'll just distinguish it from the normal cases that we've seen over the years.
Jennifer, one of the reasons we put these time limits and currently at 6 months, is it because there can be external circumstances like change in regulations, et cetera, that if the application is still pending or the building permit is still pending, that we may justifiably want to make adjustments? Is that the reason we put time limits on these things?
I think from a policy perspective, I think that is one of the reasons. You certainly don't want a site plan approval to be valid, for an unending period of time. You want to have some bookend on that in case there are changes in circumstances, changes in the laws, et cetera. But I don't think we're at risk there of things changing so dramatically in the next year that it's going to impact this project for a single family home.
Yeah, that was going to be what I was going to say in support of giving a year, because I think everything's going to be moving slowly for the next, for that time period. So I feel comfortable in doing this.
And if the applicant's trying to work with the neighbor, and if the neighbor does have banking issues and everything going on with the banks, it just makes the time period longer and longer, so.
Yep,
We
good
would
point.
appreciate that.
Okay. With that amendment to the resolution, is there a motion to adopt the resolution as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thanks, Jerry.
Chairman Cook,
Yep.
just for the purposes of the record, we should either do a roll call or also call any opposed or any abstentions.
Yeah.
Okay. Any opposed or any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carried 5-0. Thank you.
Have nice holidays. Thanks
Yep.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
You too.
Okay, we move now to our next
Bye-bye.
item.
Bye-bye.
Aye.
This is a referral from the town board. This is the local law to create Chapter 96 of the Code of the Town of Newcastle and amend Chapters 60, 108, 113, 121, and 137 regarding professional fees, escrow, zoning, text amendments. It seems to me that this is, if I could characterize it as something that's intended to simplify the escrow and professional billing procedure and consolidate it under a single chapter. Is that correct?
That is correct. It does exactly that. Currently, there's, I think, 5 different chapters of the town code where more or less the same language appears with respect to escrow accounts for applications that come before various land use boards of the town. And this is meant to really consolidate all of those provisions into one single chapter. There's other purposes of this local law as well, to add in the flexibility so that the town, in the event there's an unpaid escrow, that unpaid amount can be converted to a lien against the property owner's property and collected in the same manner as real property taxes. It also makes clear that the town has the authority to establish an escrow pre-application. There are a lot of times when in the pre-application stage, we get a lot of legal issues and issues that require professional consultants to be consulted before the actual filing of an application. And we want to make sure that we're recouping those fees in that regard. And it's also to update language in response to recent case law on the issue of reasonable and necessary fees, particularly necessary. There was a couple cases where the court threw out escrow fees that were charged back to an applicant because the fees were incurred more as a convenience to the town rather than something that was really actually necessary for the review of the application. So we wanted to make sure that we're making clear that definition of what is necessary. So in a nutshell, those are the main purposes of this local law.
Okay. Any questions, thoughts, questions? If not, Sabrina, we should prepare what, a short memo just outlining our support of the changes?
Yeah, just a, can you hear me? Yes, just a short memo.
Okay. Can you prepare that, or you want me to?
Yeah.
Just a couple sentences, I guess.
Yeah, no. We'll prepare something, and do you want to do it for chairman's review and signature?
Sounds like a great idea.
Okay. So Bob, Felicia and I, between the two of us, will get that to you within the next couple days.
Super. Very good. Okay. Do we need any kind of motion on that, Jennifer, or is it just a sentiment of the board is going to be sufficient?
Unmute myself. Yeah, just for the purposes of the record, let's just do a motion to send a favorable memo to the town board with respect to the local law.
So moved.
Okay, is there a motion? Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was 5-0. Thank you.
Well, just
And we're
check.
moving on.
I would ask, any opposed? Okay.
I know your voices very well.
I wonder how Felicia's doing on that.
We've been doing this a cappella for years now. Okay, we have a request for an extension of approval. This is the Newcastle Fire District Number 1, fire station and related facilities at 491, 495 King Street, Chappaqua, New York. This is the request for an extension of approvals that we granted some time ago. Any issues, problems, or are we favorably disposed to grant the extension once again?
Well, I'm in favor of it, but mainly because it's a public works project. I don't understand why there's such a delay. I don't need to know, but it's banging on 3 years, and it really seems that it could have moved faster or better or whatever. Now, I know there's some progress that was made a year ago in cleaning out the property and knocking the building down. But I don't think I would do this, for a single family dwelling, just letting it roll over and roll over and roll over. There is a lot of taxpayer money involved in building this, and that's, I guess, part and parcel of it, and that it's basically a public project. But I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions? If not, is there a motion to grant the requested extension?
So moved.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any recusals? Okay, if not, motion's carried 5-0. The next item is an extension request on 767 King Street, LLC. This is the Chislehurst Subdivision, lot number 6. Request for an extension of approval, 767 King Street, New York, Route 120. It seems like we just approved this.
Yeah, did we just approve this last month?
Yeah, I mean, anyway.
That's crazy.
Yeah, what's going on?
I don't get it.
Well, maybe they submitted that extension request knowing that they weren't going to make it within the time frames.
Yeah, it's only
Given
the
everything that's going on.
It's only, I think, the 60-day period within which they need to submit the final site plan to the town for review.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a very short time period.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Any questions, issues?
I have none.
None.
If not, is there a motion to grant the extension?
Motion.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Recusals? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Last extension is for Monaco Realty. This is a request for an extension of approvals, 13 Station Place. Again, action on the consideration. This is Chuck's proposal out west. Any issues, questions, problems from Sabrina or Bob on this?
None for me.
Not for me.
Why is
All
this one hung up?
Yeah.
Was this the DOT situation with the parking lot?
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point you brought up. There were some things that he submitted that were still under review that regarding stormwater management and the land banking, but I haven't heard anything from him. Have you, Sabrina, regarding meeting with the state about the parking spots?
I have not, no.
He has not mentioned.
I know he was attempting to, and he had a conversation, but he didn't have anything in writing to give to us.
Yeah, it's a very uninformative rationale for having an extension. He says the applicant is requesting a further extension as the file is under review. By who?
Well, he gave some information to me, Dick, for the stormwater agreement and land banking and the estimates. And it's still under review. I haven't completed it, to be honest with you.
It's okay.
And also, too, again, he hasn't given us any type of information or clarification as with meeting with the state for the parking or no parking out in front.
We know if he's
yeah,
met
that
with the
was-
state?
Excuse me?
We know that he's actually met with the state?
I know he has had conversations with the state, but we have not gotten any documentation from him summarizing what the conversations were or any resolve.
I also called up just to confirm what he had mentioned to Sabrina Anderelius, who's a permit engineer with the state, and she said she did not hear from him or ever been contacted by him as well. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, if we're, what we can do is the extension request was only for June 2nd of this year, 2020. So what we can do is grant, if we so desire, grant the extension, but also communicate back to the applicant that we need more details and more information in terms of progress being made and whether or not the application is really being prosecuted with the various regulatory agencies.
Good idea, especially with the state.
Yeah, I would focus it on the state because we know the status locally. But yeah, I think a warning letter like that is perfect.
Okay, we can draft a note again, a very short note, and grant the extension, but accompany it with a note saying, geez, we want to hear more details if you need a further extension. Sound fair?
Yes.
So, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So you want to make that motion?
Yep. Is there a motion to grant the extension with that accompanying memo?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Recused? Okay, if not, motion is carried 5-0. And the last item we have are minutes from the March 17th meeting. So we have this draft in front of us. Any thoughts, questions? I saw one slight typo, and that was, I think, line 51 on page 2.
Yes, that's right. Just have to change one letter.
That's correct. Dick, I'll let you do it.
Oh, well, Felicia, you already have that comment, right?
Hold on, line, which page?
Page 2
Page
of
2.
4, line 51.
I don't know if I have that comment. What was it?
Well, okay, I emailed it to you, but it says company responsible for the entire site, parentheses, except residential area, parentheses, is feasible, as opposed to if.
Oh, right, okay. Is feasible. Okay.
Hey, Tom,
Yes, sir.
on page 30, did you really say this?
I deny everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So you wanted everything included, not just et cetera, right?
I'm in the dark here.
You're in the dark. Okay.
It's because I'm a mushroom.
All right.
Are you really?
So I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't.
Okay, let me read it to you, Tom,
I
see if you
didn't
like
find
it.
the minutes in my download. So what does it say?
It says, Mr. Curley stated that he feels he lost track of where such things as pedestrian walkways are, etc., and asked whether there are any other connections. I was thinking maybe you could take out etc.
That was right. That was right before I took my nap.
I see. Okay.
It doesn't sound very coherent, does it?
Well, it's not bad. It's just,
All right, I'll remove etc.
Thank you. That'll shorten this discussion.
Okay. As amended, is there a motion to approve the minutes of March 17th?
So moved.
Who moved?
Second?
Second.
Was that Dick who moved, right?
Dick moved.
Yeah.
Who seconded?
That's me, Tom. Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Recused?
I'm recusing myself from the
Actually,
minutes.
yeah, you have to recuse. I think, yeah, that's right, Eldad. You weren't there. Yep. Very good. Okay.
I was in the Caribbean.
All in favor? I think we took it. So it's 4-0-1 refusal. Okay, I think that's it, right? We're all set? Not as bumpy as the last time. I think we're getting better.
Yeah, Carrie.
I don't want to.
I would just want to tell Carrie, this is really terrific. Very well done. I think that, you know, I watch people on TV do this, and they have more trouble than we did tonight. So this is great.
Okay, good. We'll just double check everybody's email addresses.
Right. Felicia will send out an email prior to the meeting and ask you for the best email address to send the invite to. I think it's especially important. We are supposed to be communicating with you through your town emails. You must be checking your town emails. I know some of you don't like to do that, but that really is the best way to try and communicate. That's where we send all of your information.
Well said.
The other thing I wanted to say to you all is please fool around. Like, you can go on, if you have the Zoom app downloaded on your devices, you can go on and explore the app and practice with the drawing and the annotation tools. We are asking all applicants to make sure that they have their drawings on their desktop so they could share it with you and you can mark them up as you are talking. It makes it a lot easier for everybody else who is watching. So please, you know, explore that app in your off time before the next meeting. I think it would be greatly helpful.
That's a shame because I can't use crayons then. That's like.
Thank you for that tip, Sabrina.
Sure.
Very good. Okay.
All right, everybody have a lovely holiday.
Yeah, you too. Motion to close the meeting.
A motion to close the meeting, please.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.